Hey there, guys. It's me, Dirt Muffin here for Chapter 9 of the Golden Armor. 3's a crowded mess. Let's get started. Oh, my nose is stuffy. Chapter 9. 3's a crowded mess. That night, it was Comet's turn to hardly sleep. He felt giddy, like a foal on a hearth-warming day who just saw a pile of presents. He tossed and turned in bed, anxiously awaiting on Celestia to raise the sun. Would the armor custom fit his set of golden armor? How much would it weigh? Would Mares dig it? So many thoughts ran through his head, and among them were his parents. They would be sure to come see him in his armor. Comet had missed them on his 4-month training spree, but he hoped to see them again. That's when his thoughts took a darker turn. How would she react if she saw him in armor? She'd probably smile and... No, she wouldn't smile. She wouldn't even be able to see him. A dark expression overtook Comet's face as he tried to shove those thoughts aside. He was never going to think about her again. It wasn't his fault, no. No, he had to stop there. That was not something to reflect on today. Comet dipped into his vast shore of willpower to shove those thoughts back into a chain box they had leaked from in his mind. Those were thoughts that should have never been thunk. His good mood destroyed and his energy gone, Comet rolled over and shut his eyes firmly. However, to a trained eye, a single tear could have been seen rolling down his cheek. Angel, for her part, would have had a rather vivid dream of 2 bat ponies yelling loudly, so loudly others from the caves in the upper levels could hear them. Angel buried her hooves in her ears and shoved her face into her pillow. They were at it again. She hoped this time it wouldn't result in violence. A loud yell of pain told her otherwise. They began to fight physically now, and Angel felt the horrible sadness only found when parents fought. Tear at her chest, and she began to wailing into the pillow. The yells got louder, even as she dug her hooves in deeper. She didn't want to be the center of the argument again. Finally, Angel thought she felt a hoof on her shoulder, and she woke with a start. She spun her head around the empty barracks and found no pony was there. Suddenly scared beyond falling asleep again, she peeked under her bed and saw Comet laying there. "Hey, you awake?" she whispered to him. She didn't expect a response, but Comet opened one blazing red eye and fixed it on her. "What you want?" he mumbled through his pillow. "I can't fall asleep. Can you?" she asked quietly. Comet's eye rolled and he groaned. Not with you talking to me." Angel slowly flapped her wings and set herself on the floor next to his bed. As she did so, Comet's eye tried to venture somewhere he didn't want it to, namely her rump. He blushed immediately and looked away, but the image stuck in his mind. It was actually kind of nice. Not big, not small either, just the right size. Angel turned to Comet as he bucked and beat the living daylight out of himself mentally for even letting that thought happen. But all she saw was him looking up at the top bunk. She extended a hoof and put it on his bed and said, "You know, where I live, it's not uncommon for ponies to share beds, even when it's warm." Comet's mind redoubled in his effort to kick the snot out of himself as he avoided making a snide comment, settling for just, "What's that gonna do here?" "Well, I had..." Angel was unsure of a way to say it. Comet prayed it wasn't what he thought it was. He knew of the bat pony's reputation and didn't want to mess up his guard status. "I just had a bad dream, so I was wondering..." She took a deep breath before continuing. Could I share a bed with you?" Comet's eye never wavered from her head, as she looked down as if she was ashamed to ask. His mind raced with all sorts of terrible thoughts as he questioned what Angel's intentions were, so he managed to say, Are you kidding me?" Angel was worried, but Comet might have taken the question wrong way, and lucky the dark hit her blush. No, not like that, but you see, my aunt and I used to share a room and a bed together, and when I had a bad dream, her presence always helped me get back to sleep," she said, before giving a nervous but sincere smile. Comet hoped this wasn't another sinister prank, but if she read his mind, she was walking around the bed and said, "I'm not going to do anything but fall asleep. If I do, I will report myself and get thrown out. That pony promise." Comet just stayed silent. Here was the worst possible candidate asking him a question that violated every personal space rule. But she was his friend and comrade, so he had to trust her. After 20 seconds of thought, he scooted forward and left the spot open for her. "Say anything, and I will sleep in your bunk," he said, and Angel smiled happily. Without another word, she settled into the bed, snugly her back up against Comet's, and sighed contentedly. In no time at all, Angel was fast asleep, while Comet was too nervous to sleep. This wasn't going to end well. Eventually, though, sleep found him, and he rested happily. The sound of trumpets woke Comet again, and he groggily pulled himself up. He turned over to find Angel missing from his bed, and breathed a sigh of relief. Thanks to Celestia, there were no other recruits around. Comet had learned that ever since the Changeling attack, the Royal Guard was considered a joke by the ponies. Recruitment had dropped to nearly 0, while the whole training program was being rebuilt from the ground up. Unknown to Comet, he and Angel were the first recruits to undergo the new Pegasus Bat Pony Guard training, and had successfully passed it. An hour later, after the morning run, a Unicorn Guard came and collected Comet and Angel and led them towards the castle. Angel was as giddy as she could be, bouncing up and down as she walked, and blathered out excited nonsense. Comet, as usual, took his stoic face with him and trotted with the same demeanor as the Unicorn Guard. The trio finally reached the armory in the bowels of the castle, near where the dungeons were. The guard had explained to a very inquisitive Angel that when ponies were in the dungeons, part of their stay was cleaning up soot and garbage from the armory, so they didn't lounge about all day. Comet was actually rather impressed by the thought process behind it, but Angel was vocal about hers. Finally, the new guards reached the armory. The first thing that hit them both was the smell. Sulfur and the acrid smell of slag stung their noses, and Angel protested it. "Ugh, it smells like a rotten egg factory," she complained while scrunching her nose and face up. Comet maintained a straight face, but he couldn't help but agree mentally. Unicorn Guard cleared his throat, and a burly pony the color of burnt wood came up to them. He was a unicorn with cloudy silver irises and had several large scars on his face and forelegs. The guard nodded to him, and the burly unicorn said, "So you're the new graduates, huh? Well, come on. We ain't gone all day," he said. He turned and started trotting over to a set of rather large anvils and several wicked-looking tools. Comet obediently followed, and Angel gulped, but still trotted after Comet. The large wooden door was expertly cloaked with tools, specifically hammers, and the unicorn used his magic to swing it open. The hammers rattled in protest from their rude awakening, but Comet and Angel's eyes grew wide when they saw what was behind it. Several sets of brilliantly polished gold armor sat on several shelves, gleaming as if it was just made. On the opposite side, dark blue mithril armor sat in long rows as well, each trimmed with a brilliant purple. The golden armor sported a robin's blue star on the front, while the dark blue armor wore an eye made of sapphire proudly on its chest. "Ain't that a pretty sight?" The unicorn spoke. "Let's get you set apiece." The armorer walked in and grabbed the chest piece and a helmet of gold along with 4 sets of hoof guards, also gold. He levitated them over to Comet and said, "Here, try these for size." Comet promptly started putting it on, but the armor was too big. The helmet sat over his eyes, and the chest piece hung loosely about his chest. And the hoof guards were about 3 sizes too big. Angel laughed as Comet stood there awkwardly. Sir, I think it's a bit too big." Comet said sheepishly, "Oh, 'tis it." Unicorn mused. "Just give it a second." Almost immediately after he spoke, the armor began to shift around Comet. He felt it start to shrink, and as soon as the helmet fit perfectly, the chest piece was snug, and the hoof guards fit so well they felt like they weren't even there. Angel gasped and stared wide-eyed at him before stuttering. "Comet? Is that you?" Confused, Comet looked down to see his ochre coat had turned a brilliant and flawless white. He spun his head around to see his tail was no longer brown, but short and brilliant blue. Dom is magically made to fit any pony. It also changes your coat and mane colors. Does Royal God, the unicorn explained. Comet was amazed by the radical transformation, and he even lifted his wings to see his cutie mark. It was still there and almost blended in perfectly into his new color. About 15 minutes later, Comet was admiring himself in front of a mirror. He was regal looking, tough, and amazing. Unicorn was having problems trying to adjust Angel's armor to fit her snugly, since Mithril wasn't as easy to manipulate as gold. He had thrown the helmet out since it was really only meant for stallions, but the rest of the armor was genderless. Angel squealed and refused to stay still, since she was so excited, causing the guard to have to wait and adjust the armor accordingly. 15 more minutes of admiring herself, Comet heard Angel speak up and say, "That's real nice, Comet, but how about my armor?" Comet spun around, half expecting to burst out laughing at her disproportionate armor, but fell speechless as he saw her. Angel practically radiated toughness and beauty in her armor. She stood with her head held high, golden eyes fixed upon him, and armor gleaming, as he tried to breathe. Sure, he had admitted Angel was cute, but in that armor she was positively beautiful, almost as much as Celestia and Ludas themselves. He was sure he was blushing as she strode by him and looked in the mirror. Comet tried to work out a sentence, but the unicorn thankfully saved him. "Now ain't that a sight for sore eyes? You two look mighty fine in that armor," he mused. A huge grin broke across Angel's face. Several long squeals and 3 complete turns. Seconds later, Angel had finally calmed down enough to thank the armorer and left with a still nervous Comet. Outside the armory, the unicorn guard was gone, but Shining Armor himself stood there and smiled at the two as they left. "Wow, you two look like real guards now," he mused, warming both ponies' egos slightly. They both saluted him and he returned it before continuing. "Privates Angel Beach and Comet Beats. Welcome to your first day on the Royal Guard. Usually we'd have a whole celebration for our newest members, but I have something far more special planned for you. Allow me to introduce..." He turned and swept a hoof to the stairway, and a griffin stood there, clinking her claws impatiently. She had bright gold eyes with white feathers that covered one eye, and a downward style. The tips of her feathers were lined in black, giving her an almost scary appearance. She had a black beak and claws with a brown rear half. Her tail whipped around lazily as she regarded Comet and Angels with a listless look. "Valerie. She's the griffin sent here to help with her training in a pony and griffin relationship. Will be joining you and your duties." Valerie walked over to them slowly, keeping her bored look on her face, but clearly on edge. She stopped within a hoof's reach and extended a claw. "How you doing?" she asked, with a strange accent. Comet reached for her hoof, but Angel beat him by hugging her. "Yay! A new friend!" she shouted happily, and Valerie's face contorted into one similar to Comet's first reaction to Angel's hugs. A mix of shock and repulsion. Comet sighed as Captain Shining Armor grinned awkwardly, and Angel forced Valerie to stay in her grip, even as Valerie tried to pry her off. They were getting along